old Draymond.
That's you or me?
That's me. I'm expecting some. You know, hang on. Let me turn it down so it'll be distracting during the show if we have it on here.
It was just you. When you send a message, when anybody sends a message, it always comes twice. All right,
That comes twice.
Turn down. All righty, matey. Here we go. Rightio. All right.
There we go. Well, welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime sports radio personality. Today's show, we don't have a guest, so it's a mono-e-mono. What kind of things are we going to cover today?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the stretch drive of the season. These are the dog days of August, and the contenders and the pretenders have pretty much been separated. We know who the best teams are. We know who the worst teams are. And there's some teams that are kind of in the middle, sort of, hanging on the fringes. We can talk a little bit about that. NFL training camps open. Who are the favorites? Who are the guys to watch? Who are the players that might surprise people? And, of course, before you know it, the NBA will be here again, once again. So there's a lot of things going on. It's kind of in a way, it's kind of they always talk about August, Edward, as the dog days. It really is. I mean, you're sort of waiting for football. Baseball hasn't gotten to that really exciting point yet, and basketball is pretty far off. So I guess that's why it's vacation time.
Yeah, especially when you have teams that are more than 10 games in front of their next.
Well, here in the Bay Area, we have two teams. This may be the worst baseball season I can remember since 1985. I mean, these two teams are awful. The A's at least have an excuse. They have young players, but the Giants are they're pathetic. It's really sad. It really is. But, teams go through this. This is part of the process,
I wonder how often management looks at it and just says, you know what, let's just write the season off. We're not going to just fire a bunch of people or make a bunch of changes. We'll just assume we just had a bad year.
Well, I think that's what you have to do. The Giants have too much talent. I don't think they're going to be making any wholesale changes. They do need to add some offense, but their pitching has been a real disappointment. And, of course, the starting pitching has been the big problem. The bullpen has been a problem, but the starting pitching has been awful. Matt Moore, Johnny Cueto, and of course Madison Bumgarner ever pitched. And that a lot of teams go through this. Then you look at a team conversely that's having a great year. How about what the Dodgers are doing?
Oh,
my God!
Everyone keeps saying maybe this year will be there.
Well, it's been 29 years since they won the last World Series, so they better win it this year.
Okay. Well, each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. So stay tuned. And this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments that are still currently yielding over 7.5%. Check them out, pacificprivatemoney.com. Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will be right back. All right. So that's our first
segment. How's Ava doing?
Good. In fact, I'm keeping her fingers crossed because today she's supposed to get an offer for a job.
Oh, great. She really wants to work full-time again, huh?
She does. She, we
Probably
don't have
gets kind
kids
of
anymore at the house.
Yeah.
And,
you want to have something to do with my sister's the same way. Her daughter's been out of the house for a long time, and she hasn't had a full-time job since she sold her nightclub 4 years ago. And so now she got a nice little full-time job as an office manager of a company that sells vitamins and health supplements and that sort of thing. It's a very small office. It's 3 people. But it's nice. It's like a mile from, she can walk to work, and she can work her own hours, which is really nice.
Yeah, you got to be productive. You can't just sit around,
No, I have to say, I really enjoy working at KCBS. It's kind of repetitive, but I like working at night, because that's when the action is going on at night. And my wife doesn't mind it because she gets time with my daughter, and, we have the days to do stuff. So
yes.
It works out okay.
And, you don't hit as much traffic.
No, never. And then I don't have to work the weekends unless I want to. I'll probably work the NFL season, obviously, because I like to go to the games. I'll go to most of them. But
it's still work, though.
It's easy. I got some freelance work. I got freelance work that's really it's crazy. I'll probably do some extra work for KCBS. They'll get lots of sound, post-game sound, give it to Steve Bidker so he can use it in the morning and then keep some stuff for myself.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, I record a couple of interviews, maybe 4 or 5 interviews, and then I email them to Steve. He can take them literally off his email, download them, and cut them up and use them, and then I do the same thing. I email them to myself. It's amazing the quality off your cell phone is better than with this.
Yeah.
If you get close enough,
Same thing with pictures.
Pictures. Oh, it's amazing. You don't need broadcast equipment anymore. You just have a cell phone, and you're all set.
Yeah.
I use my cell phone. I don't even use a computer when I go to the games. I go online and I figure out what else is going on besides the baseballs because I have to talk 2 minutes, and I can't talk just about the Giants. So get everything I need off the cell phone. It's great.
It'd be kind of fun to talk about.
Yeah, that is kind of fun. Okay, sure.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. So, Bruce, off air, we were just kind of asking you about, like, what are you doing nowadays? And you're doing these 2-minute segments for the local radio show station too.
In San Francisco. Yeah, it's a sports updates in the evening, and then you record some for overnight. But I do go to games on occasion, the Giants or A's game, and you do them from there. We were just talking about how much easier it is today. You know, you set up your equipment. You don't have to carry around a tape recorder or a disc player if you don't want to. Just use your cell phone. Record everything off your cell phone, download it, send it to yourself as an email, get it at the other end, cut it up, use it. You can also use the cell phone to go on the internet, get whatever other information you may need. You know, I mean, it just makes life easy. I'm one of these people who doesn't mind all this 21st century technology. I think sometimes we do depend on it too heavily, and you know, kids today sometimes and young people our age, even middle-aged people, bury themselves in it way too much. But it does liberate us too, and it makes life. It simplifies things in some respects. It does. Yeah.
So when you're interviewing a sports figure,
right?
How are you coming up with
questions?
Yeah,
well, a lot of it is based on, you know, if you're at the game, you can talk a little bit about the game. If you want to get a feature interview, you know, you have to have some ideas ahead of time, and if there's going to be a particular topic that may be a little detailed, you might want to let your subject know, hey, can we talk about this? You know, because they may want to talk about it. I remember once talking to Barry Bonds about going for the home run record, and he didn't want to talk about it. And I asked him ahead of time. He said, you know, it's a little early to talk about it. So we didn't. You know, we didn't talk about it. We talked about other things, and it was fine.
See, that's smart, because if you ask a question, you sort of, I don't want to say blindside him, but surprise him ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's on the air. He says, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's a little embarrassing.
It is.
Not only for him, but then you don't look in his good graces for the future, right?
Yeah, you know, the toughest time to talk to athletes, baseball players, after they lose, a heartbreaker. For some reason, football players, I think it's because they leave it all out on the field, and even when they lose, they're maybe disappointed, but you can talk to them. Basketball, same thing. Hockey, same thing. Baseball players, because they sit a lot, it's hot, they're away from their families, they see the media more than they see their own family. And even though it's only one game, you know, players just get cranky after games when they lose. And you walk into a winning clubhouse, the music's always playing, everybody's laughing and talking loudly, there's a lot of noise. You go to a losing clubhouse, no music. It's real quiet. The only sounds you hear are people, you know, padded feet walking around, and maybe somebody munching on a, you know, post-game snack. And anytime you look at anybody, they look at you, sort of give you this dour look. Like, don't even think about talking to me.
Well, what about if a team is having a losing season, but they win a game?
Well, that's different. I mean, the Giants have been kind of fun to deal with. When I've been only to a handful of games this year, but they've won most of them, so it's been fun to go in there. But yeah, you know, they don't get all, they're not dancing in circles after winning 2 in a row. But it is a lot easier to get information from. I remember going into the Angels manager's office. This is before Mike Scioscia. This is back in the late '80s when Cookie Rojas. Remember Cookie Rojas? Pretty good ball player, good second baseman. He was managing for a while. He was a coach, and he managed the Angels for a while. And I'll never forget going in there, and there was all this uneasy silence. The writers crowd around, and he's sitting at his desk, you know, tapping his pencil like this, and just looking at the ground. And everybody's looking at the ground. The writers are all, you know, scribbling in their pads, whatever they're scribbling. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, somebody ought to ask this guy a question, because I don't want to waste time here. So I asked him the first question, and he kind of looked up at me like he didn't know me. I'd never seen him before. And I said, man, you know, God, watching the A's play today. And the A's at that time were really, they were just hitting their stride. They clobbered the Angels. They beat them 3 in a row. And Canseco hit a couple home runs. I said, man, Jose Canseco looked awesome today, didn't he? Cookie, and it was the wrong thing to say. He looked at me and goes, yeah, Cookie. Canseco, yeah. Awesome. The A's are awesome, man. We're really blankety-blank worried about the blankety-blank A's. And I thought, okay, just retreat, don't ask me. But no, my instincts took over, and I said, is it especially tough losing a game like this after blowing 2 the previous nights, because they lost 2 in the late innings? He goes, no, I'm going to buy a blinking birthday cake and put some blinking candles on it. Celebrate losing a blinking ball game. Any other blinking questions? And And I just like, okay. But that's,
sure, I got about 4 more for you.
Oh my
This
God.
is a fun interview.
Yeah. I've been, it's usually managers when they lose. Whitey Herzog once, I saw him literally knock the microphone out of a reporter's hand. Get that freaking thing out of my face. Bam.
Now, was it like, in his face? Or
Not
was
really.
It
It was just kind of around the periphery, but he didn't like it. And some players and some coaches just don't like the intrusion. And it's different today. I don't think that would happen as often because if it did, it would be, you'd see it a lot more on the internet. It would go on the internet and embarrass these guys. So they're a lot more measured, a lot more careful. But back in the day, and I'm talking about the 1970s, 80s, and even 90s, before all this intrusion of the 21st century media, players used to just let. I never forget Susan Fornoff, very fine writer for the Sacramento Bee, was a beat writer for baseball in the mid '80s, which is, there had been women in the clubhouse for some time, not a long time, but enough for players to get used to it. And the Red Sox had a group of guys that were just particularly ornery and nasty, and they lost this game, and they just used it as an excuse to harass her. And I was doing an interview, I remember, with a guy named Bruce Hurst. You remember the left-hander?
Sure.
Nice guy, good Mormon guy, very, very straight living. And all of a sudden he started laughing. I turn around, and all these jock straps and socks are flying like a snowstorm towards this retreating figure. I see this woman running out the door. Get the bleep bleep out of here, They chased her out, literally. And I asked her about it later, and she said one of the players, I think it was Bob Ojeda, didn't appreciate the question that she asked. The Boston Red Sox in those days, in the 1980s, were a cranky sort of team. I remember Rick Miller once, who was a utility player. I was interviewing somebody else, and I hear people laughing, and then I hear this, fire, and I smell smoke. I look down, and my shoelaces were on fire. He gave me the hot foot. That was just a joke. But Jim
was this after the '85 debacle?
This is about the same time. And then not Dwight Evans. Dwight Evans was actually a really good guy. Jim Rice was one of the toughest guys to have to deal with, and he got really mad at a sports writer named Steve Fainaru, who was covering for the Boston Herald, and he literally ripped the shirt off the guy, ripped it off, and would have punched him. And Sam Skinner, who was a big local media guy, this big, sort of bulky African American guy, got along with everybody, sort of pushed Jim Rice away from the guy, and then Jim Rice stumbled and fell, and Sam sat on him to make sure he didn't go after the writer. And he goes, Jim Rice is looking up at him going, get your blinking fat, off of me. And Sam goes, now calm down, Jim. Just calm down. That kind of thing, if it happened today, that would be an internet sensation, wouldn't it? You'd see it all over YouTube. The media would go crazy with that stuff. But that stuff happened routinely. And, I have all these outtakes that I never used, obviously, but I have them somewhere, and it's fun to listen to. Carl Yastrzemski once, I went up to him, first time I ever interviewed him, he goes, what the blink do you want? It was his way of just sizing me up, and I said, well, I just like to do an interview. All right, what do you want to talk about? And then he gave me a great interview. And from that point on, every time he came to town in the early 80s, he was not a problem. But boy, the first time, it was like,
I wonder if you answer, you go, whoa, what's all the hostility?
If you said that to them, they would take that as, being uppity or being, dissing them or being sarcastic, and they'd probably just get right back in your face.
You better than me? You better than me?
Well, I mean, this is how a lot of athletes and managers manage to sort of separate themselves from their time. I don't want to deal with certain people, so this is how I test them. I understand it. It's part of the whole jock mentality.
They just can't say, you know what, I just don't want to talk to you right now.
No, they'd rather kind of give you a hard time. And, I think it gives them a small sense of satisfaction. But that happened back in the day. I don't think it happens anymore because players aren't available as much anymore. They don't give you the time.
I wonder if it was like that in like the 40s and 50s.
I don't think so. I think there were a lot less broadcast people. And broadcast people are the ones that tend to, not always, but tend to really tick off the players because they ask questions that are not real bright sometimes because they don't go in there every day. They don't know all the ins and outs. That may not be true today, but it was back in the day.
All right, so here is our first trivia question, and we're going to talk baseball today. Right?
Baseball.
I think I asked this one once before.
Okay.
No, it's okay. Let's see if you remember. What U.S. professional sports team has been in the same city with the same name for the longest period of time?
Wow, that's a good one.
Okay, now it can't be like the Giants because they've only been around since, 58?
And they were in New York before that,
Yeah.
and they were called the Gothams before they were called the Giants. So they had the same name in the same city longer than anybody else.
Correct.
Wow.
Right? That's
Okay.
the question. Okay, so you don't remember. That's good.
I'll have to think about that. Yeah, I'll have to think about it. It's got to be a baseball team. Got to be.
Well, we are talking baseball.
Okay, right. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's baseball team. It's a major league team, so it's one of the.
Correct.
It's one of the 30.
And I'll give you a hint. It's not the Tampa Bay Devil Rays.
Yeah, and it's a team that's probably back east. Obviously, it's back
Yes,
east.
it's
yeah.
obviously back
Yeah,
east.
yeah.
Okay, don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will be right back.
All righty.
I know I may ask this question, but that's okay.
I'm trying to think who it could be. I mean, there's a bunch of teams, but they would have. I think some of them have different names.
Yeah, that's
I know.
the question. Any plans for the weekend?
I haven't thought that far
You know,
ahead. We
we
just
got
got back.
guys.
Probably. We haven't got the girls the whole weekend.
Yeah.
So probably Colette's got. She gave me a break today. She said, "Why don't you go do your show and go surfing? I'll take the girls to Japantown." So the girls are in Japantown today.
Go bowling or something?
Yeah, they just like to look at the stores and buy all the little kitschy stuff. Molly loves that. She's
And
big
it's cheap
Japan.
too when it's.
It is, and the food's great there. They have some great restaurants. She loves sushi. Molly does.
That's expensive.
That's expensive. You know, it's a small thing.
Yeah, they probably get
She's been having a tough time with Colette's illness. She's been having to go to a therapist lately. It's tough, you know, because at that age they get kind of antsy.
I mean, how's Colette's health been?
Very good, very good. But it's just Molly, while we were up at Grey Eagle, she a couple times climbed into bed with us and was shaking. You know, she's like, "I'm having an anxiety attack." You know, so she slept with us for a couple nights. That's all right. You know, kids go through this.
Yeah, well, especially like if they're away from home.
Well, think about it. You know, you don't have a sibling to talk to. You don't, and your mom has got this, and she knows. You know, I don't think she knows the severity of it, but she knows. So it's tough.
Yeah,
it's hard on her. And I feel badly. But I just have to be there for her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's seen somebody. She has somebody.
I'm surprised how well Colette's handling it, and I'm handling it pretty well. I don't seem to be bothered by it too much because it's been ongoing for 2 years now, and there's no change. So I guess you just have to appreciate the time you got.
Yeah,
that's what you do.
No, that's a healthy way of looking at it.
All right, back to reality.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. So we've stumped Bruce a little bit on this. Well, let's put it this way: you didn't guess it in the first 2 seconds.
No,
I know the answer.
No.
What U.S. professional sports team, we're talking baseball, has been in the same city with the same name for the longest period of time?
I'm going to guess it's one of about 7 teams. It's either St. Louis Cardinals, Detroit Tigers, Pittsburgh Pirates, not Boston because they used to be called the Pilgrims, Philadelphia Phillies, not Cleveland Indians. I think it's one of those 4.
Or also don't forget Baltimore Orioles.
Well, Baltimore was in St. Louis, though. They were the St. Louis Browns. So I'm going to say it's either Pittsburgh, Detroit, St. Louis, maybe Philadelphia. Is it one of those 4?
Yeah, but you got to pick one.
All right, I'll say St. Louis. Detroit. Pittsburgh. No. Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Phillies.
Philadelphia
The
Phillies.
Phillies.
1883.
Wow. That's 100 and what is that? 134 years?
4 years.
Wow. That's hard to believe.
The
Giants.
won. How many times have they won?
They've won 2 World Championships.
One with Pete Rose.
One with Pete Rose in 1980 and one in 2008 against Tampa.
Did they win anything with Robin Roberts?
No, they had a pennant in 1950 and then got smoked by the Yankees. And they also were in the National League Championships a bunch of times, 3 times in the 70s, but got beat by the Dodgers every time.
Yeah.
Dodgers had great teams in those years.
Oh, yeah.
They had, those were the years. Those were the years when Phillies had Matthews and Maddox, the 2 former Giants. Every time I used to look at that Philadelphia outfit, I thought, oh, what might have been?
Yeah.
The Giants traded both those guys. Well,
they always seem to trade guys when
they had no money. It's sad. It's kind of like watching the Oakland A's. I don't know how anybody can be a fan of a team that just keeps trading players away for young players, and then Sonny Gray gets good, and they trade him. They had him for 2 more years, but they figured, we'll get 3 prospects for him, and 2 of the prospects can't even play; they're injured. So it's, if I were a fan of the A's, I'd be really pathetic, or PO'd, I should say. Yeah, it's pathetic.
Changing subject here, I just saw, first of all, that Ara Paraseghin died.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I thought he'd been dead for some time. He was 94?
Yeah.
And, we forget he only coached Notre Dame for 11 years. Now, interesting story. I didn't realize this till I read his open. He actually played for Sid Gilman, who was a great coach, college and pro coach, with Sid Gilman.
Not Sid Luckman.
No, not Sid Luckman. Sid Gilman was a great coach in San Diego, and actually Sid Gilman was one of Bill Walsh's proteges. Bill Walsh's first job was as an assistant with the Chargers. He coached, he played for oh God, several other really well-known coaches of that era. So he picked their brains, and he only coached Notre Dame for 11 years, but they had this incredible record. They won 2 national championships, and then he burned out at the age of 51. He said, I can't do this anymore, and he never went back to coaching at the age of 51. Had a very happy 40 years, although it's sad, 3 of his grandchildren died of this weird illness that was genetic, some kind of genetic problem in the family, and so he developed a foundation where they spent a lot of money raising money to fight this illness. I can't remember what the illness was, but
whenever I think of Ara Paraseghin, I think of the movie Rudy.
Oh yeah. Was he coaching? He's supposed to be the coach then, right?
He was the coach, and then he left just before Rudy gets to actually play.
Oh really? Is that right? So
Yeah.
mid-70s. Yeah, because he was there from 63 to about 74. Because I remember when I got out of college, he decided he was going to call it quits, and everybody was like, "What? Ara Paraseghin is calling it quits? What's going on here?"
Well, when I was a kid, Sunday morning, I'd wake up early, and there were no cartoons back then on Sunday. They were only on Saturdays. So it was like the only thing to watch was Notre Dame highlights.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say he also played or coached with Paul Brown and who was that guy? Woody Hayes.
Oh,
a real volatile Woody Hayes. Remember Woody Hayes towards the end of his career started to lose it, and you remember he gave a forearm shiver to a linebacker on the other team.
Yeah, it was during the play.
During the play, the guy came to the sidelines. The play sort of strung out, and Woody was so infuriated by his own team that he just lashed out and hit this guy right in the throat. It didn't hurt him, but he was kind of like, "What the heck are you doing, Woody?" That was the end of Woody. Woody was, he was old school. He was like Frank Cush. Frank Cush got away with a lot, and then finally one of his players, he was physically abusing the guy. He would humiliate him. He would push him and kick him, and finally Frank Cush got fired because of that. That's why he got fired as coach. This was at Arizona State when he was there many, many years. And it was interesting because I was in Phoenix the night that he got fired. They were playing the University of Washington, and it was a huge story. This guy was a legend. He had been there 15 years, coached all these great players and teams, and before the game was announced in the press box, he'd been fired. So I went into the stands and got all this reaction from the fans, and the fans were just furious. How could they fire Frank Cush just because he,
abused the guy,
or just because he shamed some little coward? That's what they're basically saying.
And the problem is the poor guy who gets quote shamed or abused. I mean, what's he doing to? They're going to take it out on him.
Well, not only that, he quit the team. He was a backup player, but he didn't even want to be around because they were going to give him a hard time. And then Frank Cush, the weirdest thing, was carried onto the field before the game by his players. They knew about it, and they were not supposed to win. They were playing the Washington Huskies, the team I was covering, the University of Washington, Seattle, and they beat him 12-7. It was a huge upset, and I remember he got carried off the field after the game. And in his post-game remarks, he was so emotional. I mean, as you can imagine, great win, but that was the end of the line for him. And he did coach, I guess, with the Baltimore Colts for a couple of years. Never was the same.
Boy, usually when they fire a guy, they don't let him go and say, "Oh, by the way, this is your last game." I mean, they get rid of you.
For some reason, they let him coach one more game. I guess it's because the decision had been made literally an hour before the game, and they just felt awkward. He apparently asked them, "Can I coach one more game?" And they said, that'd be a good way to go out.
Just don't abuse anybody on the field.
Yeah, if I were the University of Arizona, Arizona State athletic officials, I would have thought that would have been kind of awkward, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I would think you just want to cut the guy loose. You don't want any. Luckily, he comported himself very professionally, and there were no incidents, and it actually inspired his team. They wanted to win for him, and they did. They pulled off a huge upset. But that was the strangest night I've ever spent covering, because the game itself was a big upset, but that became secondary to the firing of Frank Cush.
I wonder how the assistant coaches, who's going to take over.
Yeah, I think one of them eventually did. They were stunned. I mean, the whole scene was surreal. The crowd was kind of stunned. The media was stunned, because the media was basically a lot of hangers-on Arizona State fans, that worked in the media. I mean, they really loved that team.
But doesn't anybody see this warning sign coming?
Oh, I think people saw it coming. Yeah,
you're going to get fired if you.
There was a lot of talk about it the week previous. I remember it was a big story nationally, and there was a lot of speculation. And then he never got. He had been fired. And Saturday. It was a Saturday night game. It was approaching, and everybody was saying, "Oh, wow, I guess he's going to coach." And then right before the game, all of a sudden in the press box, we get this announcement from the athletic director, he called everybody over and he goes, "I've got an announcement to make. Frank Cush has been fired. We haven't named a replacement yet, so he will coach tonight." It's like, whoa.
What happens if he doesn't make that announcement to you guys and you just happen to find out?
Well, he could have waited, or he could have waited and told Cush afterwards. I think he used it as an incentive to get the players to want to win that game, which they did. They pulled off a huge upset. I think he did it for a purpose. I really do. I think he did that partly to embarrass Frank Cush, which he did, because I guess this athletic director didn't like Frank Cush. But the big reason was to try to motivate the team to pull off this upset, which was a huge upset. Because
you wonder if they would really be able to, think, okay, well, let's win this last one for Frank.
And, players, I guess, it's the old win one for the Gipper mentality. It was a strange night, though. I've never covered, and I've never been to an event where the game itself became secondary, and it was a big game, too. I mean, it was a low-scoring game. I remember the score was 12-7.
That's pretty low, especially in college.
Four field goals for Arizona State, 1 touchdown for the University of Washington. That was it. And the game ended with Arizona State running out the clock, and the crowd just went nuts. It was like they won a national championship. They picked up Cush again. The players did, and carried him off the field. He was waving the thing. And it's funny, Frank Cush always wore an Arizona State blazer, and on this particular night, he was wearing just a khaki shirt and a pair of slacks, and it was almost like he was a civilian again. Wow. It was really strange. Strange night.
Before we cut to break, just a quick question here about Draymond Green in line for his own signature shoe. I'm just having to look at
that makes sense.
Sports thing. I mean,
that makes sense.
All these guys getting shoes.
Everybody who's a big name gets a shoe. I mean, Draymond's a big name. I mean, he may not be as big a name as Steph Curry or as Kevin Durant, but he's still, he's the glue.
And what's the difference between his shoe and the other shoes?
That's a good question. I've never wondered. I've always wondered what's the big deal. Why is this particular? Why should I buy this shoe over that shoe? I guess it's just the player you like.
Yeah, but some of these crazy, like hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these shoes.
And Steph Curry has I only know about his contract. He's got a contract with Under Armour that is worth, I believe, about the same amount as his contract with the Warriors is worth, which is in the neighborhood of $200 million. Imagine that.
And that stock has not done very well, apparently. It's gotten hit really hard. Maybe because they're paying stuff so much.
Could be. I don't know. That's crazy.
All right, let's go to our next commercial break here. Again, we're talking baseball. All right. So here's an interesting question. 9 pitches, 9 strikes. Side retired.
That's happened a few times.
Okay, and who is the only pitcher to have done it 3 times?
Wow.
That's pretty
crazy. I would not. I just have to take a guess.
It's funny. I'm thinking if I'm guy number 2 or 3, I might go, you know what? I'm just going to take one. Just get one ball. Assuming the pitcher's going to throw a ball.
Yeah. 9 strikes, huh?
9 pitches, 9 strikes.
Wow.
Now, they don't talk about whether they're,
And this guy did it 3 times in his career.
3 times in his career.
Hall of Famer?
I believe he is.
Okay. Not a big name.
No, he's pretty big. I would say that you'd probably just be in the Hall of Fame just for that.
Fairly recent?
Not as recent as
back in the 80s, maybe.
Before
70s. Okay.
Okay. All right. So that's our question. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com. The answer to that question. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's a good one. Where do you get these questions anyway?
Just various internet.
There's probably a lot of places where you can. Yeah. So what you been up to?
Well, going to Martha's Vineyard.
Nice. Well, that's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, I've never been there.
You gonna stay with some friends?
No, we're doing it. It's a business trip.
Oh, okay. You and Ava?
Eva is going with me, but I'm doing it with Mark.
Is it like a conference or something?
Yeah, we're not, I don't want to say keynote speakers, but we're one of the speakers.
Oh, how fun. How long are you staying? A week?
The 8th to the 12th.
Okay, so you fly into Boston, take a boat out there, or take a small plane?
Small plane, yeah.
Not that far of a flight. I think if you take a boat, it takes about an hour, maybe less than that, 45 minutes.
And I know it's expensive, so I'm going to tell Eva, here's $25, go to town.
Yeah, Martha's Vineyard is a fun place to visit. It really,
You've been there?
Yes, I've been there. Yeah, I've been all over New England. I love New England.
Any recommendation?
It's been so long. I was there when I was 13.
Oh.
So the only thing I remember are the beaches and the things that kids remember. I don't remember anything about the town really.
Well, weather should be pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially it's its own little island.
Yes, it is.
So being near the water should be too.
Oh, it's beautiful weather. That's nice. It'll be nice and cool. Not cold, but cool, relatively speaking. Should be.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Let's talk about the stretch drive, the MLB training camp. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Second trivia question. 9 pitches, 9 strikes, side retired. Who's the only pitcher to have done it 3 times?
And this guy pitched in the 70s, you say?
Actually, in the
60s. Yeah. Sandy Koufax?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good guess. Because, Sandy Koufax for 4 or 5 years was just, from 63 to 66, he was unbelievable.
It was sort of like Jim Brown.
Yeah, he
short
had
career,
but boy.
Powered. Gail Sayers, same thing.
Yeah, well, Sandy had retired at the age of 30 because his arm was just, he would balloon up to twice the size, and he had to take medication that would just make him violently ill. And somebody asked him, why are you retiring? Can't you take any medication to manage this pain? He goes, well, let me explain to you what it's like. And he went into great detail, about vomiting and having diarrhea and having aches and pains. They had very effective medication to lower the swelling, but it just created the side effects were horrible.
Yeah, I wonder what the difference is like now. What kind of medication would be now?
I'm sure, but in those days they probably would have given him the Tommy John surgery, and he would have been back. I'm sure that was the problem. I mean, he had.
He's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah,
Sandy, give him the operation now.
He's about. Sandy must be.
Could be 80.
Got to be in his 80s, early 80s, yeah, because he was 30 when he retired, and that was in '66, so that's 51 years ago. So he's in his 80s, yeah. 30 years old, though. Can you imagine having to retire? But he had a great career, and he had no regrets, and he made good money, and then he got into television, did not like TV at all, was very uncomfortable in front of the camera. And,
well, he wasn't that outgoing, was he?
Not outgoing at all. Married the daughter of the famous actor Richard Widmark, and he never really stayed. I think he's married twice. I don't believe he had any kids, and he's just always a very private guy. Loved to paint, very, very bright, very well read, very well traveled. But I interviewed him one time, and I got off on the wrong foot with him. And I asked him a couple of questions he didn't like, and I thought the interview was going to the toilet. And luckily, I saved myself to ask him some question about his career, and he liked that. And then he told me the story, and I thought, oh, thank God.
What did you?
I asked him. I said, something stupid like, oh, if you pitch today, you think you'd be just as good. Of course he'd feel that way. He goes, that's not relevant. That's all he said.
Whoa, how long ago did you ask him this question?
Oh, God, this was 25 years ago in a golf tournament.
Oh, good.
And I think also because I was interrupting, he was getting ready to have breakfast. He didn't appreciate that. And I had heard that he was kind of prickly, but I didn't realize that.
See, that's got to be kind of tough. Again, the guy having breakfast, he's doing something.
Well, he's with his friends at a golf tournament. He doesn't want to be bothered. I mean, he expected to be interviewed by a few people, but I don't think that was the time to do the interview. And I was one of those young, hustling guys. Up into my 40s, if I saw somebody I wanted to interview, I'd just go for it. Tech with protocol. I was like a bull in a china shop. And most of the time it worked out pretty well because I was pretty well behaved. I didn't charge in there and act ridiculous.
Or just interrupt everything.
No.
See, that's the thing
I think
sometimes
that's the key.
I get kind of frustrated with people, and then I realized later on, it finally dawned on me that it's like sometimes you're talking to somebody, and this other person wants to come in and talk to the person you're talking to, and just totally ignores what you're doing, and just starts blah, 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 blah,
some media folks do that too.
And you know what I finally learned is to say, hold on. I said, let me finish my conversation with this person.
Yeah, I've had to do that a couple of times. I was doing an interview.
And it's thoughtless. It's not that they're
it is thoughtless.
They're just not thinking.
Well, I remember I was doing an interview with some famous athlete. I can't remember who it was in particular. It was before the game. It was a baseball game. And, quiet in the clubhouse. And I've been talking to this guy for about 4 minutes. We've been doing the interview. Suddenly this writer comes over. He just sits there. And I figured, okay, it's okay. You can take notes. I don't mind. Yeah, he starts asking questions right in the middle of an interview. I had to stop, turn off my mic. I'd say, look, we're doing a one-on-one interview. Can you wait? Oh, you can't. I mean, he was real put off by that, and I just thought, well. And then he walked away, and the athlete looked at me. He goes, "That guy's a jerk anyway."
Well,
that made me feel better. Yeah.
All right, so talking about the stretch drive of the Major League Baseball. So, okay, some teams are like way out of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
like the Giants.
The Giants and the A's.
And the Phillies.
They just don't have a chance.
White Sox.
How many games do the White Sox have?
They're about, I'm going to say about 29 and a half.
They would have to pull a Giants versus Dodgers in the 50s.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that, though, is that you got 3 teams in front of you as well. So, they're not all going to fall apart. So, it ain't going to happen.
Okay, so we got the Dodgers who look very good.
Yeah. They look great. I mean, I don't see anybody beating them. But then again, you get in the postseason. I remember a couple years back in 2001 when I think it was Seattle won 112 games or something, and then they get in the playoffs and they lost in the to the Yankees in the ALCS. They couldn't win a couple close games. That's the problem. You get to the postseason, you have a little bad streak, and the season's gone.
Yeah.
It's over.
Well, and the Dodgers the last like 3 or 4 years, or actually probably the last 5 or 6 years, it's been like that.
They haven't even gotten to the finals. I think they got to the finals, the ALCS one time maybe.
Yeah.
Did they get there last year? I don't remember who was in last year. It's funny, I can remember who was.
The Cubs beat the Giants.
Cubs beat the Giants.
And then...
Who did the Cubs beat after that?
Maybe they did beat the Dodgers.
Maybe they did, yeah. God, I should know. It's funny, I remember what happened in 1966 better than what happened last week.
Right? Don't tell me. Baltimore Orioles swept the
Dodgers.
Dodgers.
And the Dodgers did not score a run for the last 3 games. Imagine that.
They're all shutouts.
Yeah. That's humiliating.
And was Brooks Robinson the MVP?
No, he was MVP in 70. I think
70.
Frank Robinson was MVP.
Oh, Frank, yeah.
Frank had a great game. Frank, I think Frank was MVP of the American League. I'm not sure
Yes,
who
he
was.
was.
I'm not sure. There was a guy named Mo Drabowski who came in the first game as a reliever, and the score was tied, and the Orioles ended up winning. He pitched like 7 innings of shutout ball, and he was, kind of this journeyman, reliever starter, and he was sort of the poster boy for that team as a result of that. That's a great story.
Huh.
I love that when the guys come out of nowhere, and
Yeah.
you can't predict who's going to have a great postseason. You just don't know.
Well, what I thought was really cool, and again, being a Giants fan, this really was awesome, but just in 2014 to watch Madison Bumgarner just come out and just dominate,
Yeah.
and you look and you go, the guy's got to be a machine because
Yeah.
I mean, how can you pitch that many innings?
I remember when he came in that penultimate 7th game in relief, and the Giants I think were ahead by a run or 2,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought, oh my God, is this guy gonna?
Does he have enough?
Does he have enough? Because they needed him, and he did. He had enough.
Well, in fact, the first time I remember that kind of a situation was when they brought Randy Johnson in. I think it was Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Brought him in, or maybe it was Seattle time.
No, he went Seattle and then Arizona,
but
and then won the championship.
Yeah,
with
he was with Montreal before that.
Yeah.
Nothing with them. But
he moved around a lot.
Yeah, but I think it was with Arizona where they just, it's like, wait a minute, you can't bring a reliever into it, or I mean, you can't bring a starter into this kind of situation. Isn't that against the rules?
No, you see that happen a lot in the postseason. Convention gets thrown out the window. The teams to beat right now, obviously the Dodgers are playing great ball. Houston is unbelievable. The American League, the Cubs, as poorly as they've played, I would not discount them because they just have that pedigree and they have that great group. And Washington now, they've added some help to their bullpen. They picked up a couple of guys from the A's who should really help them. And I think Dusty Baker's got he may have the best hitting team in baseball.
See, that'd be great to be a player who's on a lousy team and you get traded to a team that's going to be in the playoffs.
Well, I think about Sonny Gray. He goes from the A's to the Yankees. Yankees are game out of first place in the American League East. I mean, I think he's going to make the difference. The Yankees are going to be in the ALCS. I get the feeling.
Really? Okay.
I think they're that good. Yeah.
Well, it'd be neat to see Houston because I remember feeling bad for them in
they should
85.
make it. They should be Houston against the Yankees.
It should.
Yeah.
No. Houston against the Dodgers.
No, Houston's.
Are you talking about
in the American League? Yeah, American League.
So
Yeah, I keep thinking of Houston as a national team.
Yeah.
It's weird. Milwaukee's the national. Why don't they just switch them back? They can do that very easily.
Yeah, because
they're in the Central Divisions. Yeah, they can just switch them back, but the people don't care. There's no tradition in I hate to say it, Houston has no baseball tradition, and Milwaukee, outside of the Braves when they had Henry Aaron, really, how often have the Brewers been in the playoffs? I think they went to the World Series in 1982, and that's been pretty much it.
Yeah, with Robin Young.
Yeah, Robin Young and Harvey King, Harvey's Wallbangers. Remember Gorman Thomas and Pete Vukovich and Ben Ogilvy? That was a fun team.
Yeah.
Good ball. Paul Molitor.
Yeah.
It's a good team. Ted Simmons was on that team, the former Cardinal catcher. That was a hell of a team.
It was.
Yeah.
I still remember that.
Harvey Keene, I remember, had a peg leg. He had cancer and had his leg removed. He walked around with this wooden leg. He looked like a pirate.
Huh.
And he was a character. He'd sit there after the game, and he'd kind of talk like this, and he'd have a big glass, probably about a plastic cup full of ice and some kind of drink. It was probably whiskey. and he'd just take a little sip once in a while. Oh, and he'd dispense, his wisdom. He was a character. Yeah.
But Houston, okay, so you had the Houston Colt 45s,
Yeah.
and then the Houston Astros, because the Astrodome.
Right.
And, I mean, I think the furthest they ever went.
The World Series.
Well, they did. They
Yeah.
lost to the White Sox, yeah. But before that.
1980, when they lost that great ALCS in 5 games to the eventual champion Phillies. I think 4 of those games were decided in the last at bat.
Yeah, What was also exciting, though, I remember 85, but a lot of people forget about, they remember the Mets versus Red Sox, and that was
86 was Mets.
Oh, that was
Sox.
it. Yeah. I'm
85 was Royals and
Cardinals. Those
that was a meltdown of what was the pitcher for the Cardinals that melted down in that 6th game? Got in a huge fight and got kicked out of the game by the umpire.
Oh yeah, it was the
bad
call.
The bad call.
Yeah.
How that cost him the whole thing.
Yeah, but no, actually, I am thinking 86.
Okay.
Mets.
Mets and Astros. That was a great series.
Great series.
Yeah, the 16-inning game that the Mets clinched the pennant in Houston. I think with 2 out in the 9th inning, Kevin Bass, I believe, or no, it was Mickey or Billy Hatcher hit a 2-run homer to tie the game, and then the game went into 16 innings before the Mets finally pulled it out and won it.
And then they win the World Series.
And then they win the World Series. They were down to their last out, and they got 3 hits in a row, 4 hits in a row. Mookie Wilson hit that little ground ball, went right through Bill Buckner's legs. And if you're a Red Sox fan, God, that's just a painful memory because they didn't win a World Series for another 17 years.
That's right.
Or later than that.
18.
I'm sorry, 18 years. Yeah, 2004.
Yeah.
Man,
But when they did that one, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they went
down 0-3.
Yeah, they won 3 since then too, just like the Giants. It's kind of neat the Giants and Red Sox, exercise the demons with 3 championships in a short period of
So
time.
who knows? Maybe the Cubs will do the same thing.
I'd like to see I'm hoping Washington for Dusty Baker saying, and Washington hasn't won a World Series since 1924 when the Senators won it with Walter Johnson, late in his career. On a bad hop single that went over Freddie Lindstrom's head. And they say that the legend goes that Calvin Coolidge, the then president, stood on the dugout of the Senators afterwards and danced the Charleston with his wife. It seems kind of unlikely because Calvin Coolidge was the most dour, kind of quiet New Englander. Once somebody asked him, hey, Mr. President, I bet I can get you to say more than 2 words. And he looked at him and he said, you lose.
Is that right?
Yeah. And his favorite line was, the business of America is business. Sanders, please have 25 copies of that made for the press. Calvin Coolidge, Silent Cal, as they call him. Yeah.
So I'm wondering though, okay, so after the Cubs finally won after 108 years, would the Senators be next? I mean, it's kind of unfair because they were out. They were out for a while.
Who else? Oh, Cleveland's had a long time. And now the Senators. No, Cleveland's been since 1948. The Senators would be, but you got to remember it's a different franchise, and also they didn't have a team from 1972 until just a few years back. They didn't have a franchise because you remember the franchise went to Texas, and they didn't get they didn't get the Nationals from Montreal until like 2004, I think it was.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so it's kind of a different situation.
Or let's see, maybe just a team from Washington.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, here we go. Here's our third trivia question. Who was the first National League player to win the Triple Crown twice?
Ooh, good
That's
question.
our question, all right?
Yeah.
Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to that question. And you got to name his batting average, how many home runs, and no, that's it. All right, that'll be it. And then we come back, we're going to have some closing comments on Sports Econ.
Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts on
Yes.
Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. I didn't say we'll be back. I just said don't touch that dial.
My boss always used to give me a hard time. We're not going anywhere. Stop saying that.
Yeah, I'm going to the bathroom. I'm going
to splitting hairs.
Yeah.
I thought, a little blue sky out there. They say
so
we might
warm,
have
though.
some lightning today.
You know what? With this warm weather, I could.
August. It's not unusual to have a little rain in August once in a while. Not
Yeah.
unusual. I remember a few days like this. Yeah. It's
Lightning
like the
is
East
cool.
Coast though. It's kind of cool. I like it.
I know. Like Houston's got those Austin thunderstorms.
Oh God!
Those
I was
are
the only time I've
sweet.
been to Houston in the summer. I went there with the Giants in June, and it was like this the entire time. And you didn't see any blue, and it rained, and it was just muggy. And then after it would rain, it would get hot. The rain would not cool it down and make it muggier.
Yeah.
What an unpleasant place to live.
We were in May, and it was kind of hot and warm, but the nighttime thunderstorms were so.
The only thing I liked about Houston was the Astrodome. I really loved the Astrodome because it was so funky and quirky, and it was very comfortable inside.
And the
Giants
were nice.
And the people were nice. And the Giants had their best series ever. They won all 3 games. And Will Clark, Matt Williams, and Barry Bonds just destroyed the Astros in that series. Just wiped them out.
I did get the fortunate time of going to the Astrodome.
Yeah.
We were there for that, and I said, "Hey, got to see a baseball game."
No, it's the first indoor stadium, and it had all these little quirks to get down to the clubhouse. You had to go down these little narrow stairways, and there were all these little corners and dark rooms. And Judge Roy Hoffines he was a big bowling fan. He built a 2-lane bowling alley out beyond center field for his own private use, and it's still there.
The Giants have that too, don't they?
A bowling alley?
Yeah, I think they have a couple of bowling lanes in
Wow.
in AT&T.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, somewhere in the Gotham.
In the Gotham Club. I did not know that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Like
Interesting.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. And here was our third and final trivia question. Who was the first National League player to win? I don't even know anyone. He says the first National League. I don't even know if it's ever been done more than twice. First National League player to win the Triple Crown twice.
I was going to say, I was looking at who did it twice, and I was thinking the American League, Mickey Mantle maybe, but God, I'm stumped. Hank Aaron or Willie Mays, somebody big like that.
Well, they never won the Triple Crown.
Never won the Triple Crown. Yeah, I was going to say somebody fairly. Ernie Banks, no.
No, let's go back in time.
Oh, go back to say Honus Wagner, no.
Close, a little bit
later, like in the 20s.
Yes.
Who was a great national? Bill Terry, maybe?
No, come on, who's the Raja?
Oh, of course, Rogers
Hornsby.
Yeah, who is now also a very unpleasant human
That's
being.
what I've heard.
Yeah,
they say next to Ty Cobb.
Yeah, here, what happened, his mom died, and he was managing at the time, and somebody asked him, aren't you going to go to your mom's funeral? He had to manage. He said, I have to manage. And he said, Mom would understand.
Yeah, probably would.
Yeah, probably.
So in 1922, he batted .401, hit 42 home runs, and 152 RBIs. Yeah, that was
152 RBIs. I remember. I think he still holds the record for the highest batting average. And I believe it's 424
in 1924.
In 1924.
But in 1925, he had 403, 39 home runs, 143 RBIs.
The Raja.
The Raja. That's what they call it. Okay, here's our thoughts for the day.
Thoughts for the day.
Newt Rockney said, "One man practicing sportsmanship is far better than 50 preaching it."
I couldn't agree more.
And Ara Paraseghin, I got this before he died. A good coach will make his players see what they can be rather than what they are. Thought that was pretty good
That's
too.
very true about him.
Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. Well, we'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.
Gotta get Brennan back on here sometime.
I know.
Brennan's such a good guy. He's moving into his new house.
Oh, where is he? It's still Mill
They bought
Valley,
a
right?
place.
They bought a place?
Yeah, they sold their house.